In some respects, the man behind the one, Mr. Niami, is as fascinating a figure as the building itself. With a 360 view and $295 million price tag, this mega mansion certainly worth a look. Hi there, welcome to Exceptional Luxury. On this channel we make honest and to the point narrated video about luxury, lifestyle, and people all over the world. In this video we will be touring and documenting the one and the sage with it. The full tour and documentary begin in 10 seconds. Welcome to Bel Air, more specifically the beautiful and most expensive mega mansion in the U.S. market that was developed by Niami. The mega mansion development originally began in 2012 on one of the best locations in California, and for sure specifically in the Bel Air area. The Beverly Hills Estates Ms. Williams, who later worked on the sale of the one with her husband, Brandon Williams, said that he really revolutionized Los Angeles real estate because he took risks that nobody was willing to take.
That has been legendary to all Angelinos for the last 12 years and worldwide in the last decade has become this iconic sort of figure. It's kind of bigger than life. It's more than a home. It's an entity.
In the San Fernando Valley, Mr. Niami grew up in a working-class neighborhood. Before founding his own production firm in 1994, he worked in special effects for low-budget films. Around that time, he started a side business buying small homes in the San Fernando Valley, repairing them, and then selling them, he revealed to the Wall Street Journal in 2018. He started with flipping houses for under $300,000 and worked his way up to flipping condos in posh neighborhoods. The couple started looking at bigger and bigger properties after getting married in the late 1990s. Mr. Niami would successfully repeat this business strategy again and time again. He gave his residences extravagant features, such champagne cellars and glass-bottomed pools, and charged more for them than the market had previously accepted, according to Ms. Williams. In the past, Mr. Niami's longtime partner architect Paul McLean claimed that Mr. Niami pushed the spec market into existence. Mr. McLean said that Mr. Niami had a talent for furnishing his residences with extras that attracted wealthy customers, such as monogrammed towels and perfume spritzes. He was selling a lifestyle, Mr. McLean said. According to real estate brokers, Mr. Niami also employed unusual marketing strategies. Female models painted in gold paint and dressed in black underwear and chain mail appeared in a listing video for one of his residences, while another model was shown swimming naked in the pool. Earlier this year, the financial woes of Mr. Niami's signature project reached a climax, ending a saga that had captivated LA real estate observers for a decade. Mr. Niami's quest to build one of the biggest and most luxurious houses in American history, a roughly 105,000 square foot mega mansion with a nightclub and 5 swimming pools, had gone awry amid unpaid debts and a bankruptcy proceeding. In March, the one sold at auction for just $126 million plus commissions and fees, far less than the roughly $190 million debt outstanding on the house, according to bankruptcy filings. Mr. Niami said through a spokesperson that he and his ex-wife Yvonne Niami ended up losing $44 million on the project, plus 10 years of my life. In some ways, the story of Mr. Niami, the man behind the one, is as compelling as the house itself. He really revolutionized Los Angeles real estate because he took risks that nobody was willing to take, said Ms. Williams of the Beverly Hills Estates, who later worked on the sale of the one with her husband, Brandon Williams. This account is based on interviews with lenders, business associates, personal friends, real estate agents, and construction experts who interacted with Mr. Niami while he was building the one. Then, around 2015, Mr. Niami began telling reporters about a house he planned to call the one, which would be priced at $500 million. Mr. Niami had purchased the site in 2012 for $28 million, according to property records. He tapped Mr. McLean to design his most ambitious house yet, with jellyfish aquariums, a casino, and a nightclub, the architect said. But Mr. Niami soon found himself facing more competition amid a glut of spec homes. People started coming in and they started copying me, he said in 2018. Mr. Niami's houses had previously traded quickly, now they were lingering unsold. By 2018, records show, Mr. Niami had at least 5 unsold spec homes on his books and was carrying hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. At that point, Mr. Niami told the Journal that the stress of his business was taking a toll. "It's like, oh my God, look at the mortgage payments," he said. At the time, Mr. Niami was rolling his profits from other sales into building the One, using his own money on top of loans he had obtained from companies linked to Canadian investor Lucien Remillard and physician and real estate investor Joseph Inglenoff. In 2018, Mr. Niami received a $82.5 million loan from Don Hankey, a real estate investor who runs a company that provides subprime car loans. Mr. Hankey said the loan allowed Mr. Niami to pay off some of the tens of millions of dollars in debt on the property and provided funds to help finish the project, which was about 80% complete at the time. While he viewed the $500 million price tag as a marketing stunt, Mr. Hankey said he thought that the property could command $200 million to $250 million. He had cash flow problems, Mr. Hankey said of Mr. Niami. "We priced our loan a bit higher than the normal because there was extra risk involved." Mr. Niami's spokespeople said he believes the loan was priced comparably to Mr. Hankey's other loans. Mr. Niami was also undergoing changes in his personal life. In 2017, Ms. Niami, his wife of 18 years and the mother of his 2 children, had filed for divorce, records show. Ms. Niami didn't respond to requests for comment. After the couple split, Mr. Niami developed a reputation in the real estate industry as a party boy, according to business associates who worked with him during that period. This perception was bolstered by Mr. Niami's active social media presence. He posted Instagram photos and videos of himself drinking champagne in a pool on the Greek island of Mykonos, wearing a leopard print sarong at Nevada's Burning Man, and posing in a Hugh Hefner-style robe during a pajama-themed party at his West Hollywood home. "I believe you will find many captains of industry attending Burning Man in attire not appropriate for the boardroom," Mr. Niami said through his spokespeople. As for the pajama party, he said, "It seems to me that someone wearing a robe at a pajama-themed party is exercising modesty." During LA's COVID-19 lockdowns in 2020, 8 citations were issued for illegal parties at properties owned by Mr. Niami, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. They included citations for loud or unruly gatherings and one for serving alcohol to minors. Mr. Niami said he was renting the homes to third parties at the time. "With perhaps one exception, these violations were not caused by me," he said. Lenders grew concerned about his lifestyle and partying, according to multiple people involved in the bankruptcy process. By the onset of the pandemic in 2020, Mr. Niami still hadn't completed the One. And while the Williamses said they had been working for several years to find a buyer, the house had never officially been on the market. In the year leading up to the auction, the Williamses said, they brought Mr. Niami several offers from Middle Eastern buyers, but he never acknowledged them. Mr. Niami disputed that characterization through his spokespeople, saying he never received a single offer. The One was a hard sell, according to agents who toured the property. For many buyers, it was too large, more like an office park than a private residence. Another obstacle was that Mr. Niami hadn't obtained a certificate of occupancy, so the house couldn't be legally lived in. That was partially due to the fact that it was larger than its permits allowed, according to a preliminary report by Vertex, a construction consulting company that was tapped to assess the property in 2021. Meanwhile, after years of building in fits and starts, cracks had started to show in the partially completed structure, including leaks in the 7 water features and stains on the marble floors, the Vertex report said. Through his spokespeople, Mr. Niami declined to comment on the report, saying he had not seen it and didn't have access to the house during the period in which the leaks are said to have occurred. He said that construction on the one stopped and started over the years because funds were dispersed slowly by Mr. Henke, and that Mr. Niami had to advance money to pay for the construction. If the loan proceeds had been dispersed for construction costs during the period when they were promised, the house would have been completed, all problems fixed, and the certificate of occupancy obtained, he said. Frequent headlines about the house were also a deterrent to buyers, agents said. A lot of people didn't want to buy a house that's more famous than them, said Aaron Kerman of Compass, one of the agents who worked on marketing the property. Around this time, Mr. Niami started saying that he didn't want to sell the one at all, Mr. Kerman said, instead proposing turning it into a high-end events venue that would host boxing matches or even the Academy Awards.
We are creating gigantic boxing matches right in the grass with the world championship boxers that you could ever imagine, and concerts.
He spoke of having holograms of entertainers like Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, and Elvis Presley entertain crowds at these events.
Holograms.
When you say holograms, what do you mean holograms?
We have the latest technology where you have someone standing there that looks like a person, but it's a hologram that's created on a stage in 2.5 seconds with all the cameras taking a picture of you at the same time.
We did everything we could to explain to Niles that this was a long shot and he should focus on the sale, but we weren't having much luck with that, said Mr. Kerman. Mr. Niami said through his spokespeople that if I were allowed to follow that dream, all of the investors and lenders would have been paid in full, and I would have been in profit on the project. He also talked about launching a cryptocurrency based around The One, a bank called The One, and a television network called The One Truth Network.
We are starting our own bank that we can take in depositors, but it's a very special bank, and it is called the One International Bank. And when you deposit into our bank, you get the first every depositor will get this, a 24 karat gold Visa with a real diamond. So that's kind of the level of stuff that I'm trying to do, along with all of.
Concerned about how his money was being spent, Mr. Henke said he required Mr. Niami to work with a local development firm to help oversee construction. He blew through the money that we gave him, Mr. Henke said. We were trying to limit our funds to make sure that they went in the right place. In October 2021, after issuing Mr. Niami several extensions on his loans, Mr. Henke filed to foreclose on the one. Mr. Niami responded by putting the property into bankruptcy, which paused the foreclosure and gave him more time to find a buyer. A multi-day online auction was scheduled for March of 2022. About the time of the bankruptcy filing, fashion mogul Richard Sagian had spent about 5 years looking for his LA dream house. The founder of the fast fashion company Fashion Nova had a budget of $50 million to $150 million and was looking for a house with views and a jacuzzi off the primary bedroom, according to Mr. Williams and Hilton and Highland agent Stuart Vederick, who said they showed Mr. Sagian around almost every major LA listing. Mr. Sagian and Mr. Niami had first met a few years earlier when Mr. Niami gave Mr. Sagian a tour of the one. Mr. Sagian hadn't made an offer, the agent said, but as the auction loomed in early 2022, they convinced him to see it again. They spent about 4 hours one evening exploring the house. It seemed to intrigue Mr. Sagian, Mr. Vederick said, but he wasn't sold. On the final day of the online auction, the bidding was stalled at around $60 million, and the agents were in a panic, Ms. Williams said. There was no reserve price on the property, meaning it would sell to the highest bidder, no matter what the price. During the auction, Ms. Williams said she was so distracted while driving through the Hollywood Hills that she asked her assistant to take the wheel of her Range Rover. Concerned about the low price, she dialed the property's trustee from the passenger seat and begged him to stop the auction. "I'm not that sensitive of a person," I've been in this business a long time and I can handle myself, but I started crying. Suddenly, a new bidder entered the fray, placing a bid of $90 million. Mr. Sagian had changed his mind. Mr. Hankey then bid $100 million, thinking he would be able to sell it for a higher price later on, according to people familiar with the process. But Mr. Sagian outbid him, ultimately paying a total of $126 million for the house. A judge approved the sale a few weeks later. The price was one of the highest ever obtained for an LA home, and Mr. Hankey said he would likely recoup all the funds he provided for the project. But the price didn't come close to covering the property's other outstanding debts and the money the Niamis put into the one. When you reinvest everything into one Camelot project, it is devastating to see that money vaporize in front of you, Mr. Niami said through his spokespeople. He was also furious at Mr. Sagian, saying that Mr. Sagian had been a good friend and accusing him of backstabbing. I showed Richard the one because he said he was interested in buying it, Mr. Niami said through the spokespeople. He had every opportunity to do so over the course of several years of our friendship, but instead waited for a fire sale auction that he knew would leave me with nothing. Mr. Sagian declined to comment on that accusation. While many in the real estate industry now view Mr. Niami's troubles as a cautionary tale, Mr. Williams said he would never count the developer out. He came from nothing. And he's a smart guy. Some of the underbelly of Los Angeles got to him, and he lost his focus, said Mr. Williams. Mr. Niami disputed that characterization through his spokespeople. I can honestly tell you I gave it 200% effort.